Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.
All right, I'm very excited because we get to play our Buell interview today.
Yeah, with Bill Melvin.
Yeah, so you'll hear a little bit about starting a business in America. It is a motorcycle business, not a car business, but I think people still care. Right?
I think, yeah, and the timing is fascinating because it's an old brand, but they're bringing it back, and it's mostly American, and yeah, I think the whole thing is fascinating. I actually want to follow this story as it unfolds.
He's also a car lover, by the way. I went to the auto show with him last week, which turned out to be pretty cool. I was
going to ask you how that went.
Yeah, it was fun because Magnus knew some important people, including Brian Miller, who owns Manhattan Motor Cars. So then he introduced me to Brian Miller, and then Brian gave me his take on the whole tariff thing, which was, I thought, really fascinating. And you know, people write off these auto shows. I do, for sure, because they're not as
There's
well
no
attended.
News. There's not a lot of news broken.
Right.
For those of us who are covering news, it's not news.
It's not
heavy.
like it used to be.
No.
But I still love seeing the cars. Like there was a Mustang GTD there, which is absolutely gorgeous. The livery
looks great.
Was white with the red and blue stripes, and you can see the shocks and in the suspension system in the back. I just was dying over that.
I mean, for people who haven't seen that car yet, that's the perfect opportunity to see that car. Because it's a big deal. It still is a big deal, even though it's been out for a year. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So
huge.
if you haven't seen it, it's worth going.
Huge. Plus, I saw the Ford PR there, and I was begging him to let me. I was like, dude, is there any chance I could drive this?
Did you get a commitment?
He said maybe at Le Mans.
That's not a no.
If
not
I
a
go
no.
to France. Yeah.
It's not a no.
I also want to talk a little bit, before we get into that stuff, I want to go through the emails that we got.
We need to go through emails.
And then I want to talk about the Cadillac Escalade IQ. It's a big, hulking, like maybe 10,000 pounds worth of electric vehicle that you drove already, and I'm spending the week with now.
Yes. By the way, before we jump in, are you planning to turn on your camera, Matt? Or do you prefer to stay?
Yeah.
Because I'd love to see your shining face.
No, I will. I will turn it on.
I'm talking to myself here.
So obviously our listeners.
There we go.
Can't see.
There you are. Oh, you're still in your corporate
I'm
stooge
still wearing the coat
suit. Yeah, I get it. We have to do that sometimes.
You've got the Union Jack on your.
You know what this is? I'm so proud of it. This is Kate Moss's collaboration with Topshop that she did some years back. This is a reproduction of the John Galliano Union Jack jacket that she wore on the cover of Vogue back in the day, and then Topshop recreated it. And I found this in a vintage store last week in New York for $50.
Nice.
And I'm loving it. So thank you for noticing.
Nice. Very cool. You know what? Why don't we talk a little bit before we get into everything else? Let's go through the emails, and one of them touches on textiles and clothing, right? Our ongoing discussion about Japanese denim. Dean wrote in and said, "Thanks very much for continuing on that thread." He says, of course, Magnus has firsthand knowledge of clothing production. All right. So anyway, we do appreciate people writing in, and our email address is hotpursuit@bloomberg.net.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Hotpursuit@bloomberg.net. And Dean, no, you are not the only idiot who names all your vehicles for us to see in the email. And we do appreciate you sending the photos.
Do you name your cars also? Do you name your cars?
I don't know. No, I'm not a namer of cars at all. I never have. I go by color. Right. I say the red one. What about you? You name your car.
No, I don't.
What?
When I was a kid, we did our family cars. Like the Blue Swede was my
that's nice
Volvo 240 GL station wagon from 1984. It was baby blue. But no, I don't do that anymore. I guess I would if there was some reason. but I just don't personify these
No,
cars.
I don't either. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. It's just I personify my dog. I think that's where I direct my humanization of things.
I'm glad you named your dog Willow.
Yeah, Willow. She identifies as she, her person.
That's great that she has her own pronouns too.
Yeah, she does.
Rather
She
than
does.
it.
Yeah, no, she's definitely a girl.
All right, cool. So we got another email from a guy named Tony, and very happy that he listens to the show, and he was applauding our tariff discussion, which, by the way, a different person wrote in and said basically he won't be buying a Lamborghini Revuelto because of the tariffs now. He thinks that's going to hold him back.
Wait, did I miss that email? I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah, that was...
I know. Oh, from James.
Yeah.
Yes, from James. You know,
I feel like if you can plock down for a Lamborghini Revuelto, it's not going to matter to you if it's 10% more or 20% more.
Well, I mean,
but
that's
maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. I think that's what Ferrari is also banking on. You know, they're going to charge a 10% more, I think, across the board, and they're assuming people will pick up the slack. Also, I have an Ineos Grenadier this week. I have the Fieldmaster.
Oh.
And I know I can't wait to talk about that. But they also said they were going to charge slightly more, but they don't, to manage with the tariff increase. But they didn't think that would be, that won't put off their buyers.
All right,
put it that way.
Can you not talk about the Ineos Grenadier?
No, I can talk about it.
Okay, good.
I just didn't want to derail.
Well, I just wanted to ask one thing because getting back to the emails, the list of emails, Tony writes in and says, thanks for the tariff discussions, but also he and his wife are going to Air and Water next week. And I was thinking, what is Air and Water? But you know. So
Air and Water is from the folks who do Lufticult. And this is, it's not Lufticult, it's more modern cars too. It's April 26th, Saturday. In, I believe, Long Beach. I believe it's at the fairgrounds.
Is that Long Beach? Is that in California? Or
Oh, sorry. Yes, that is in California. It's at the Orange County Fair and Event Center. The locations change every year. But it's honestly a big Porsche party. That's what people need to know. It's a big Porsche party. Lufticult is this ongoing sort of rotating show of classic vintage Porsches. Air and Water is sort of like a shoot-off of that, featuring historic and modern cars, race and street cars. It's just a Porsche car show.
I get it. So
yeah.
I won't nail the pronunciation either, but Luftgekühlt is air-cooled, right? Luft
exactly.
is
yes.
air.
Yes.
And gekühlt is cooled.
Yes. And the people, you instantly burnish your Porsche street cred if you say it.
What's your take on that? Because I've been a fan of Porsches since I was 9, right? I'm 51, so 42 years. And I love I grew up with the 964, and I loved the 993, but I also liked the 996 when it came out, and the 997. I was happy when they went back to the regular headlights, and then I bought a 991, which I thought was perfect. I never really cared if there was a water cooler in the car or not. Like, who cares if it's air cooled?
A lot of people. Oh, I mean, a lot of people. That is the defining characteristic. A lot of people care. It's the defining. It's the break between vintage Porsches and modern Porsches. Put it that way. It's just in the timeline. That is the Berlin Wall between the old stuff and the new stuff.
It's weird because in my mind, the break is between 964 and 993 because that's when with the 993. They got rid of the wings. You can no longer see the wings from the driver's seat, right? Because the headlights are then raked so far back. And the 964 still had like the big turtle eye headlights.
Well, you're not far off because the 993 was also the last air-cooled Porsche 911.
Right.
So you're
I
not.
put my wall one generation closer to the old.
Yeah, completely. I don't think you're off at all. And the funny thing is, that car. To me, the 993 looks so tiny now, and the older it gets, the better it looks. It's weird to say, but even like 10 years ago, I didn't necessarily love it. But now I'm like, oh, it looks really cool. And
Agreed,
it reminds me of like Michael Jordan, like when the Chicago Bulls were winning everything. It's like that era of when Nike was super cool, and I don't know. It's a good era.
I totally agree. Like the looks of the 993 when it came out, I loved it. And then, after the 997, when they kind of went back to the sort of 964 form, I didn't like it as much because I thought the headlights were too raked. But now as we get further away, I like it. But in terms of the motor, right? I think it's always interesting because Harley people are the same way. Like they really care if there's a radiator. Like it really makes a huge difference. It did on Ducati Monsters also, right? From the S2R to the S4 RS. I don't know why people get so up in arms about throwing a radiator on a motor. Like, especially if you can get more horsepower out of it, why does it matter? It's still naturally aspirated.
It's got to be a mix of nostalgia and also a deep sense that somehow things that are mechanical and analog are more authentic than things that are more technologically advanced. And I've been thinking about this a lot just as we go deeper and deeper into the world of AI and social media, and we get farther away from humanity, from human everything, from human creation, human thought, human interaction, human skill and design and attention. I think it's all just this sense that as we move further down this road of virtual reality and computerized everything, some people like the thought of maintaining a closer connection to truly mechanical and analog tech, I don't know, things. What do you think?
Well
Is
said.
that nuts?
No, I totally
I've been
agree
thinking
with
about that
concept 100%.
And I'm not saying it's rational all the time. Like when we're talking about radiators and motorcycles.
Yeah,
Sorry
because
to cut
there's
you off,
nothing
but-
digital about
Right.
a water-cooled Porsche engine. It still doesn't need any computers, right? Necessarily, you could still have a carbureted, water-cooled engine. So I don't know. I get it, especially with motorcycles, because I wouldn't want a Harley that's liquid cooled either. But with Porsches, I don't care as much. The air cooling isn't the problem, and I don't even care as much if the steering is electronic. But it starts when you start moving further and further in that direction.
Right.
It does bother me.
And I do think it's an emotional thing. It's not necessarily rational all the time. So the 993 was so interesting too because that was 50 years basically of air-cooled technology. So that was the last. And then when they switched to the 996, which by the way, everyone hated in addition to just hating the idea of water-cooled engines, hated the headlights, which we should discuss, Matt.
I mean, despise them.
People, especially with these old brands like Harley Davidson, you mentioned, and Porsche, and also I think Corvette goes there too. People just hate change in general. Like the new thing of anything instantly is going to get a lot of hate
to some extent
on these iconic shapes.
It's to some extent it's true. And by the way, I hate the 996 headlights, and I will always hate them. I don't care if collectors say like now is the time, like Ted Gushu goes out and buys a 996 turbo, so we all should. I do not like it, and
why not? But why not?
They look so plasticky. There's just too much junk, dripping into the body. I don't love as I say, the rake of the 993 headlights, but at least they're round.
Yeah.
These
they
996
so
headlights become like this melted jelly bean that all SUV shapes are now. And I just don't like it at all. I don't care if it's water cooled. I'm glad if they take a step forward in that kind of. It's not really technology, is it? I guess it is technology, but in that sort of engineering. But yeah, I don't. I was so happy when they went back.
I was going to say, I feel like Porsche probably would never admit this, but their actions after the 996 sort of might have proved that they did agree with the general consensus.
And by the way, the 997,
they changed them.
I've always thought that 997 is so cool because they made that. they made that compromise. They went back to the original round headlights, but they continue to develop what essentially was a 996, right? That generation lasted for 13 years. So if you get a 997, you're getting the end of that, attempt at perfection for a 911, and they came so far. They did so well. I think everything is so sorted, and that is the last 911 that actually has mechanical steering. There's no computerized steering. Really? There's an actual handbrake. I mean, to me, that is the ultimate analog 911 before they went to a stupid little button that you push to put on the emergency brake, and before they went to electric steering, when you could really feel every pebble under your tires.
You say that, but I have to say, it's a great car. I'm not gonna argue. I literally just Googled photos of it, and I'm like,
the 997 also doesn't have that huge center stack that goes through the middle of the car,
But the funny thing is, this car feels nostalgic to get into. Like when I get into ours, it feels old, and it's not that old a car.
Which one?
The 997.
Yeah.
The 997.
Yeah.
It's not that old a car.
True, it does feel. It feels like a classic though because of the sort of emptiness of the cabin.
It does. It still feels really analog, to your point. And then when you get in a 991, that does feel, to me, modern. That is definitely a break point, I would say.
Yes.
In like the 911, you're right about that. In the 911 timeline, because the 991, that's the car we drove to Moab in a day, and it was kind of just fine.
Yeah. Well, I still think it's a perfect 911. It just is a little bit more electronic, but there are some huge benefits to a 991. They have the 3.8. The 3.8 liter inline six is the biggest sort of non-GT car that you could get with a naturally aspirated motor and a stick, because that GTS is like the perfect GTS. You can get a stick. It's a 3.8. You can get the Burmester. Like, everything is nice. And now with the GTS you have a turbo, and now you have a hybrid turbo, and there's no stick anymore.
I don't think that's wrong.
And they don't have analog gauges. Ugh, they don't have analog gauges.
They've got a screen that looks like an analog gauge, Matt. Come on. Look, I'm all about the right tool for the job, and we've told this story before, but the 991 really changed both our minds about, it's a modern usable car that you're going to want to use when you don't want to use an older, more analog.
By the way, I don't always think new or change is bad. This year is the first year that Harley Davidson's in the Cruiser, the Softail lineup, have had traction control and ride modes.
Oh, how's that going for you?
I talked to my dealer buddy in Connecticut. He doesn't like that because he thinks like you don't need rider modes, but okay, don't use the rider modes.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Yes.
It's been throttle by wire for a long time, so I'm glad they put rider modes. I'm glad they have cruise control. I'm glad they have traction control, because they're all about making maximum torque to the rear wheel, right? And if you have maximum torque to the rear wheel and no traction control, that's no bueno when it rains a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, to me, well, first of all, does that new technology add to the weight of the bike?
I don't think. It's a Harley Davidson, so heavier is better. No one's trying to lightweight a Harley Davidson.
For me, I don't want anything that adds to the weight. But in general, I agree with you that, hey, if you don't like it, just don't use it.
In a Ducati, you do want as light as possible. In a Porsche, I guess they're still aiming for light, although they get heavier and heavier. But in a Harley, a weight is a benefit. Weight is a good thing.
I disagree. Even in any with the Harleys, I'm like, it's already heavy. I don't want to add anything else. It can't handle it.
By the way, while we're on weight, let me just tell you my thoughts on the Cadillac Escalade IQ. So I have been waiting for at least a year, probably longer, for this, because I think it's such a beautiful design. And
it looks great.
I mean, I think it's gorgeous. And so much room. Obviously, it's an Escalade, so there's so much room inside. I'm a big person. I like a lot of room. I have kids with car seats that are rear-facing, so I need that extra space. And I just love a huge land yacht. But this is one of the first vehicles I've driven where I'm like, yeah, I can feel the weight. That's a little too much weight. It
What
is
are you talking
very,
about?
very heavy. The Cadillac Escalade IQ, it feels...
In what driving?
I feel like it's crushing the pavement as I roll down the highway.
No.
I mean, it is very, very heavy.
That is the opposite. When I was driving that in San Francisco up and down the coast, it was light as a feather. I mean, you just need to go faster.
No, it's very fast, but if you put it in like the V mode, you can push a V button on the steering wheel, and that puts it into the, I guess, ultimate sporty driving mode. And then you mash down the accelerator. It's very difficult to keep it under control. I didn't have that so
problem
quick,
at
and
all.
I'm just squirming all over the place.
It's quick. Yes, it's quick. I think the steering was so light, so good, so nimble and agile. I was really impressed. It has rear wheel steering, just like the GMC Hummer. It can do the crab walk. It will literally crab walk you into a valet spot. I mean, I was like, this thing feels light as a feather. I think you just need to drive faster.
I don't know if I just wasn't thinking about it when I drove the Hummer, because I really enjoyed the Hummer.
Me too.
And I really enjoyed the GMC Sierra EV, their electric pickup truck. And I imagine that those have similar battery size and are probably almost as heavy, if not as heavy.
Yes.
The Cadillac is the best of the three of them in terms of NVH. You know, in terms of noise, vibration, and harshness, they have absolutely perfected it. But to me, it just felt so, and feels, I'm still driving today, so heavy, especially under hard acceleration. It's squirmy, and I don't know. The only other complaint I have, which I have to say, every time I touch one of the doors to open or close it, I don't understand how they made those doors. It feels like... they're trying to give me a workout by opening or closing the doors. There's a resistance there where if you want to open it, you have to
that's
really
the automatic.
pull.
Well, that's the auto. You're supposed to let the door open for you.
It doesn't open all the way, though. And even if you're on an incline in a driveway, it won't even stay open all the way. It's like my Challenger. The door just wants to close.
I do agree. It's one of those automatic, like semi-autonomous doors, and they're not my favorite. I do feel like they get in. That's an example of technology just getting in the way of getting on with your life. Because I actually agree with that. It's kind of annoying.
I don't know why. I'm sure there are big differences between this vehicle and the G-Wagon, but the G-Wagon doors are perfect.
Those are tiny. Well, I do agree with that.
Are the doors much smaller? I mean, maybe they're a little smaller, but...
Those G-Wagon doors are about 18 inches long. You know that's true. But let's talk about the size of this thing, because it's 19 feet long. It's like 6.5 feet tall. I do agree that when driving that vehicle in urban environments, it's not the best. I would much rather use it as a conveyance that someone else is driving me in, because to me it was challenging just because of its size. You know, I do agree with that. I want to know what you think of the big dashboard, those huge, like 55-inch curved screen inside. Did you like that? Did you not like that?
Well, so I love everything else about the vehicle. I really love. There are some small things I would change in the dashboard, which you have to, I think, be driving it to kind of understand. So when you put on a turn signal, it shows you the camera view of the left or the right. You can turn it off so you don't have to see it.
Yes.
But I like it because I can. It shows me what's in my blind spot. The only problem is the camera image comes up in the middle above the center stack. And I'd like that camera image to come up right in front of me.
You can do
my
that.
Steering wheel.
You can switch it.
Oh, can you move it over?
Yes, you can move it over, because I had the same exact experience as you. I was trying to follow a mapped navigation route, and every time I would turn on my indicator to follow the navigation, that camera would come on and cancel out the navigation. So I was completely lost. And then I figured out, I can move the camera view into the space in front of the steering wheel. But to your point, it took me like 10 minutes to figure out how to do that. And again, it wasn't fun.
I like that. I mean, Kia and Hyundai, obviously at a much lower price point, have been doing this for a long time. I think it's good technology, but initially it ruined my navigation experience as well until I put the navigation in front of me. Anyway, that's good to know that I could change it around. It's not 100% intuitive, but I think once you understand that system, it works well. And I also think there's no Apple CarPlay. And this is GM, I think, has done a great job of this. I don't miss Apple CarPlay in these vehicles. I think it's not necessary because everything else works so well. The navigation is Google Maps already, which is as good as you're going to get for navigation. And the suite of apps or whatever that they have covers pretty much everything.
They're going to be offering Dolby Atmos soon.
The audio system, I think, is pretty good. The AKG system in mine, it's still not fantastic, and it's a $150,000 vehicle. The one, at least as optioned, the one I'm driving.
I think it starts about $127,000, which is $40,000 more than the gas-powered Escalade.
Well, for me, the one I'm driving, it's $148,350. With
all
like
the
$150 of options because it's the top, the Sport 2, right? I feel like for that price, I should expect like a concert quality stereo system, and it's just not quite there, but it's still better than almost anything else on the market.
Atmos is coming to the Escalade. The weird thing about it is they didn't launch it with Dolby Atmos. Not that that's the be-all and end-all, but I think it would help. They
also didn't launch it with the automatic. Like, apparently, you're going to be able to open and close the doors with the screen after a software update, but they haven't done that yet.
Yeah, there are a couple little things that maybe when they arrive will make it a better experience. I think all in though, this is a car you could be proud to own. It's a car I'd be proud to own, be proud to see in. In terms of arrivals, if you're at an event, for sure. I mean, and there aren't many American vehicles I would say that about.
I think their whole line of SUVs, like the GMC Yukon Denali, similar thing. The Cadillac Escalade V, the supercharged gas engine option. I have had people walk up to me on the street or in parking lots and say, "Oh, that's a nice car.
Yeah,
is that
they
an
look
Escalade?"
Good. Yeah.
So
there's some
very cool tech also. Like to open the trunk, you just touch the Cadillac emblem on the back. So there's no button on the trunk to open it. You just hold your hand over it.
It's like secret knowledge.
Yeah, very cool stuff. So I was excited. I am excited to drive it, and it's so awesome to have as a family vehicle.
Does it fit in your garage?
It barely fits in my garage, and I need to have it in the garage because I have to charge it myself. If I take it to a charging station, I went to Electrify America because I had gotten it down to 20%, and I spent 55 minutes getting it back to 90%. So in 55 minutes, I got...
That's good.
That's an hour.
Yeah,
right?
but
if you're on a
back
road
to
trip...
Full,
though? Well, to 90%, and guess what it cost?
How much?
Take a guess. 55 minutes of charging at Electrify America.
$5.
Nope. Guess again. You obviously don't charge vehicles much.
No.
$111.
What?
$111 to charge at Electrify America from 20 to 90. I know you're supposed to charge just
I'm
to
dumbfounded.
80. Yeah.
What?
It was very expensive.
You might as well be filling up a Rolls-Royce gas tank because that's about what it costs for a fill-up.
My wife was like, "Did you put it on the company card?" No, I paid for it myself.
What?
$111
wow.
to fill it
I'm
up.
truly flabbergasted. I was thinking $5-10.
This is the thing. So if I'm driving to Ohio, it has a ton of range to begin with, like over 400
miles.
Over
450 miles of range. I think that's the industry leader.
Yeah, that's 450.
That's very
if
good.
You're driving conservatively.
Like a granny and not running anything.
I put it into V, and I'm doing like basically 90 miles an hour.
You need to.
So, but if I'm going to Ohio, that means I have to fill up at least once. So that's an hour stop and $110 to do it.
This is not the promise of EVs that we've been sold.
I'd rather have the Escalade V. I'd rather have the GMC Yukon Denali. I'd rather have the Chevy Tahoe ZR2, you know? All right, let me just ask you a little bit about another SUV that's a completely different idea and use case, right? So you drove the Ineos Grenadier. I have not driven one, and I really want to because they look awesome.
Yeah.
And I think they have done some really great engineering for that and choices for outsourcing. So what do you think?
Yes. So It's a fascinating vehicle. Obviously, we've all seen them around. A ton of people have asked me about it. I've got the Ineos Grenadier Fieldmaster, which is a special edition that is in partnership with Bell Staff. So it has, which I feel like you might like it, Matt. Yeah,
I love
it
Bell
has
Staff because
like
they do a lot of motorcycle stuff.
A badge with like the Bell Staff logo on it. And it's called the Fieldmaster because I think there's a Bell Staff jacket called the Fieldmaster.
There is indeed. It's a very famous jacket.
And so I had my disclaimer is that I've really only had it for a day and a half. I've got it for the week, so I haven't done a ton with it yet. But I can tell you early on the turning radius is terrible. The steering is very, very loose and all over the place. Obviously, this is a vehicle that's tooled for off-road driving, so that is
the steering is the one thing that worries me. I haven't driven it, but I've heard
the steering is a challenge.
It just doesn't automatically center like a normal modern car, right?
It really doesn't. It's all over the place. But one thing I really like about it is the interior is just big buttons. There is a small screen in the center console for syncing Bluetooth, basically, but it's just big buttons to adjust climate and sound and fans. And it's like the idea is if you're wearing gloves, you can still like punch the button, which I love.
No reading glasses necessary.
No, if you're 90 years old driving the thing, it'll work great. It's too tall to fit in the company parking garage, so I'm valeting it out front. Or actually, this morning I just parked it in front and walked away because the valet wasn't there. So I hope it's still there at the end of the day. We'll find out.
I think that's so the steering. I wonder, do you think it's the kind of thing you would get used to if this was your everyday vehicle? Would you?
Yeah, I do. And especially, my good friend Shmuley, who is a very intense off-roader, he's done King of the Hammers many times, goes off-roading almost every... Have you met Shmuley? Do you know Shmuley?
At your
wedding?
wedding?
Avatal, yes.
Yeah.
He had one for a while, and he loved it. And he is telling me that off-road, it is exceptional. He wishes they would make a manual version. But so, from my off-road driving experts, maybe they do offer a version. But Shmuley really gave it his seal of approval, and I do trust his input. I would say, the price on this is like $80,000, which I was shocked. I thought they were a lot more expensive. That seems like a very fair price. Yeah. And
considering how expensive cars are these days, I agree. I think so. I've also heard that it's built for overlanding, right? That's the thing. They don't make a manual, unfortunately, but it would make sense. It would make sense.
I think the Fieldmaster they're sort of positioning as slightly more lifestyle / luxury, but it's still pretty rugged. I mean, it's cool. It has like a target top almost where you can pop out some glass inserts in the ceiling. It's massive in the back. It's got a ton of storage. It's fun. It's cool. I'm looking forward to discovering it more this week.
I really am excited to read your story. You'll write on that on Bloomberg.com, and then it'll be in Pursuits. Yeah. I have been fascinated by it ever since I heard about the idea, which they came up with apparently at the Grenadier, which is one of the tiniest pubs in London. I love the pub in Belgravia. It's like the most classic, like old school pub. There's room for like 4 or 5 people in there. And I guess the billionaire founder of Ineos said,
Jim Ratcliffe.
He said, why are they doing away with the Land Rover Defender? I think he tried to buy. Is that right? He tried to buy the Defender sort of to make it himself, and Land Rover said no, and so he just did it anyway.
He wanted to buy the tooling from Jaguar Land Rover to try to complete, his own the Defender again, and he was told no. So he decided to do it.
But he made some really good outsourcing decisions. For example, the motor is a BMW Inline 6.
Yes. Yeah, which is
unbeatable motor. Absolute classic.
And I believe that Jim Ratcliffe, of course, he owns some soccer teams. I believe he owns Bell Staff, if not all of it, part of it. So he,
Oh, really?
Yes.
So, by the way, Ewan McGregor, I think, wears a Fieldmaster-like jacket in his motorcycle series Long Way Up.
Makes sense. Makes complete sense. My point being, this is a very wealthy man who is not depending on Ineos for his survival to make a lot of money, which I think is good. I don't like these firms that are sort of betting everything on doing a resto mod type vehicle. It's better to come at it like this is sort of his pet project and he can take the time to do it right and spend the money to do it right.
A great time to transition to someone who does need his new business to work. We talked to Bill Melvin, who has bought the Buell brand or the Buell motorcycle technology from essentially came out of Harley Davidson and then bought the brand from Eric Buell himself. And he's starting the business, starting production of his Super Cruiser motorcycle in the fall in Michigan. We had a chance to sit down with him. Let's listen to that interview. Bill, tell us first of all about how you got the business.
Yeah, well, we have a buy-sell company, Liquid Asset, and we have been doing a lot of deals in the motorsports business, working with OEMs, distributors, some race schools, and had the opportunity to acquire an amazing product. Really, the core of the product at that point is our V-twin, right? It's a 185 horsepower, 175 horsepower, depending on the fuel setup. And it's very lightweight. It's a V-twin we build in America. But it's very, it's a Ducati-style engine, right? So it loves to live at 7,000 RPM, right? Like when you get to 7,000, that's where it starts to breathe. And then from there, everything just turns weightless. And you turn the throttle up to 11,000 and it just rips, right? Like you got to experience. So it was really a cool thing to have that, but we didn't have the brand. The brand was still owned by Harley Davidson at that point. So
Harley basically, I was reading about this earlier. So Harley basically let it die. They wrote it down to zero after the great financial crisis.
Yep.
But they still held the asset.
Correct. Yeah.
Why did they let it go? Just out of curiosity.
It was the performance brand of American motorcycles, and they were, wanted to focus just on the heavy cruisers. So as they were doing that, they let it go, and we feel fortunate that we were able to pick it up through some great attorneys and a little bit of divine intervention, put it back with the high performance engine. And then we started working on what's next. We got to build a team. We built an amazing team. We wanted to move it to Michigan, the motor state, where you have all the resources of engineering and motors and gears and gasoline and horsepower.
But how did you have the idea for the Cruiser? Because Buell was making, as you say, sport bikes, right? The idea was low center of gravity. They had the fuel in the frame. They were the first motorcycle I saw with the exhaust under the bike, for a street bike.
Yep.
They were race bikes. So how did you say let me get Roland Sands
It's a hard pivot
to design a cruiser?
It was a hard pivot, yeah. Well, we were looking at the engine and the platform and what could we first do with this high performance platform that would also be more Americana, right? So you look at the traditional styling of a cruiser, and I thought I want to have a traditional cruiser, steel tank, steel frame, but package in our superbike. And so I thought, who would be the best designer for this? I'd known Roland Sands.
He is the best designer for this.
He is awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, just a genius. So we had a late night Friday phone call and talked about the way it would come together. And a week later, he sent over the sketch, and that was it. It was beautiful.
Did you have a certain rider or certain mentality in mind when you were talking with Roland about what to create? Because I'm very curious about what type of person is going to be drawn to this bike, besides Matt, who I think you're even surprised at how much you like it.
I was pretty surprised. I knew I would like it, and I've been following it since you guys first unveiled it with Roland Sands years ago.
That's awesome.
But I've been, I don't know, I've been blown away by the engine, really. It makes this insane sound when you chop the throttle, and the handling, it reminds me a lot of the KTM Super Duke when they first came out with the 1290, except for it actually looks cool. So
yeah. Well, the coolness is really something that Roland put into it, right? He's an artist. He's got great designers. But, we wanted to really go to the core of the American motorcycle market and give the riders what they hadn't had for but that they've always wanted, right? They've been going to Ducatis because that was the performance that they wanted. That was the engine sound. That was the exhaust note that they were looking for. But they couldn't have that performance in an American-style bike. And so that was the vision, to create that Americana with a Buell brand, a performance brand that people know around the world, and put something together that no one's done before in the U.S.
So tell me about, I know you've taken a lot of pre-orders. I think the idea was you pay $1,000 to get on the list, and then you're eligible to buy it for like $25 when it comes out. So give us those details. How many pre-orders? When are you going to start building it?
Yeah.
When's the first delivery?
So we have a little over 6,000 pre-orders.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. Our team's been cranking ahead. The cool thing is we've built an awesome team. They're really energetic, passionate group about making a cool product. And they've been just cranking away on all the development steps. And we do final testing, emissions, EPA, CARB, get all those things buttoned up. And we start production this fall.
Okay, so are you going to be hit by tariffs? I mean, I have to think right now this is a great time to be launching an American-made bike. How affected are you going to be by tariffs?
Yeah, we'll be a little bit affected on our components because we do have
Sure.
some foreign components. But on the new bike, we've been really focused for the last 3 years to have more U.S. content. So 85% of the new components are U.S. sourced.
That's high.
Yeah, it's big.
That's really high.
And we've been focused on that for a while. But if there was like a large tariff on European motorcycles or European exports, that would be helpful for us, right? Because then, the similar, performance Ducati or BMW is going to be, 25 or 50% more, and ours would have like a, 5% increase.
Well, you're smiling, so you
yeah,
seem
we'd
pretty
be good.
relaxed.
We'd like that. Yeah.
Good. All
So
right.
I have to think the elephant in the room is the Harley Davidson Lowrider S. Just because they also build that as their performance cruiser. Obviously, it's a very different thing in terms of the motor.
Yeah.
And actually the seating position, although they're similar in that they're both kind of mid foot pegs and kind of a raised riser, they are actually a little bit different. But I was talking with Shannon at the MotoGP, who is your supply chain director. And I don't know how much we can talk about this, but she said Harley Davidson's components are like 30 to 40% U.S.
Yeah. They got a lot
That sounds much lower than I would have expected.
Yeah, and they moved a lot of their manufacturing overseas, which is, a challenge that they're going through right now. For us, we're building them in Michigan. But, it's a cool thing that we've been building. It's a interesting vibe that we're getting from the customers, right? I mean, we're getting all these young customers who are coming to us saying, this is what we wanted, right? We want a U.S. product. We're willing to pay a little bit more for it. We're excited that you guys are focused on U.S. supply chain. And we've been building like this super cool, energetic vibe with our team. Like if you go into our factory, like it's almost a reality show. You got all these, people just...
You should make a reality
yeah,
show.
super
I'd
excited
watch
about
it.
it,
I'd
right?
definitely
Yeah.
watch that.
I mean, and it will be then basically
Passionate.
the only really American-made motorcycle. I mean, not just assembled, but you're going to have more than half of your components sourced from the U.S.
Yep.
You're going to build it in the U.S. And
Yep.
I don't think that Indian and Harley then will meet that criteria.
I'm not sure exactly what their percentages are, but we've been really focused on it, right? I mean, it's hard to do. It's expensive. We've been raising some capital with some investment friends and family that want to be aligned in building this American product. But it's great to have that support from the customers because they're pulling us ahead, right? And those riders are like these core riders out in LA that are the Dyna Bros, right?
They're
And
insane.
They're
insane.
super passionate about the types of product they're riding. The Lowrider S just really doesn't give them what they want, right? Like it's heavy, it's got good torque, but
How much does your Super Cruiser weigh?
it's just about 500 pounds.
So
And
it's
the Lowrider S is like over 600, like 650 or something, or 670.
Yep.
Their horsepower's like 120. We're 175. They have a little bit more torque, but we've got very quick speed. So you turn the throttle, it's got 101 pounds of torque on under 500 pound bike. It just rips. Right?
Can I just ask a provocative question? I'm not going to ask if you considered making this new bike electric, because it doesn't fit at all with what you're describing you want the brand to be. But do you think there is a place for electric bikes in the broader world of motorcycles, and what is their future? Or is that something that you're just like, you never think about?
Can I just jump in for a second? It's funny that you're the second person to ask this question of Bill today. Your interest was piqued in motorcycles because you were like tinkering in your garage on electric bikes before any existed, right?
Yes. Yeah. I started riding when I was 4. My dad had a huge collection of rare bikes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And he was a historian and a deal maker. And so I was riding like all the bikes you could ever imagine, similar to what, you and Magnus are driving all kinds of different cars.
It's the best.
I had that growing up, so I was fortunate. And then
so you were into bikes already, but you did get into electric propulsion.
Started working on electric vehicles, was testing some of the new electric motorcycles that were out in the market, was starting to design an electric cycle, had the website electriccycle.com, was working on some electric scooters. But really what I was seeing is that the power to weight isn't quite there. So the weight of the battery and the power that you need out of it is too heavy for 2 wheels. So to have a comparable motorcycle similar to what we have with any kind of similar range is going to be like 700 pounds, right? 800 pounds. And then when you get done going 80 miles, 90 miles, you have to sit there for an hour and a half. So the charge factor was a big factor as well. And it's shown in the industry, right? A lot of the electric companies have been having issues with their sales and customer satisfaction.
Well, all you had to do is watch The Long Way Up and realize this is not the right way to travel. But it could be someday, right? And it is fun for those short zips. I wonder about track use for your Super Cruiser. Have people been taking down the track? Because that's instantly what I wanted to do.
We did go on the track, yeah. So we went out with a pro rider, and we have our super bike, the Hammerhead, which is a Ducati level super bike, and we have the Super Cruiser right there with it, and it was like 1 second off on lap times. So it rips on the track. It has a lean angle similar to a super bike. But it doesn't look like one, right? So it's kind of neat to have that. You can go down the road, you can go down the beach, you can cruise, but you can go on the track, you can rip, you can stun it, you can do wheelies. It does all kinds of fun stuff, as you've seen in some of the photos.
That's good, because I don't want to be a Power Ranger anymore. Now I just want to be a Hell's Angel.
Yes, love it.
That was Bill Melvin, the owner and CEO of Buell Motorcycles, and suffice it to say, I'm very excited about that.
Me
product.
too. Me too. I mean, it makes sense. I hope they can pull it off.
I really do as well. I think they're one of those businesses, you take a ton of orders, like a Singer during the pandemic, or probably Icon happened to them, Revology, and then you got to turn around and make them.
You got to execute.
And it'll be amazing to see if they can execute. And make money, right? Because it's expensive to produce stuff in America.
It's so, I mean, and the tariffs, I mean, I don't know if they're ready.
Well, fortunately, they don't care that much about these tariffs because they've sourced most of their supply chain in America.
Yeah.
So you're driving the Ineos Grenadier.
Yes.
We're going to hear more about that. We're going to get your article on it. Oh, by the way, one of the coolest things about the Ineos Grenadier, well, maybe not the coolest, but a flair touch that I love.
Yes.
Have you configured a vehicle online?
No.
When you configure the vehicle, you can choose the color of the frame under the body. So I like to configure a blue Grenadier, and I pick a red frame. And then you can just barely see it peeking out under the vehicle. Like, you almost have to know to look.
What a tease.
Don't you think that's cool?
Yes. I think that's very cool. It's like stitching on the inside of a suit or pant leg or
like British guys are always wearing red socks.
Yeah, of course.
Even though they're dressed to the nines in a suit in the city, and then like you can only see it when they sit down on the tube or whatever.
It's a reveal.
Yeah, very cool.
That's nice.
What else have you got going on? You say Air and Water is coming up this weekend.
Air and Water is Saturday.
Are you going to go?
Yes. Yeah, planning on it. Yeah, nice. Saturday morning. And that's kind of, Formula One Miami's coming up. I'm not going to go, but we've got some guests for the show coming up that are going to come on around F1 Miami, and I'm going to have some coverage on that coming up, so that'll be good, something to look forward to. And that's kind of it. New York was so fun last week. This week I'm focusing on, grounding, going to ground in LA.
Nice.
Chilling out. Yeah.
Yeah, so working on yourself a little bit there?
Yeah. Yeah, walk the dog, get a coffee, try to stay chill, try to go for a day or two without having a cocktail or two, just relax.
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
You know how it is.
You know my whoop thing that I wear?
Yes.
This whoop
How's
thing?
that going? Yes.
The last few days have not been good in terms of recovery.
Why?
So, I don't know. Like I'm all over the place. Maybe too much sugar, not enough sleep, not enough exercise. So I really need to ground myself as well.
Yes. Yeah. You know.
Play some sports. Maybe talk to my shrink a little bit and just kind of get back to do some breathing exercises.
Yeah, completely. I love the breathing. Get some incense. Ooh, I found some really good incense in New York this trip, Matt. I know you're an incense lover.
Yeah, I like it.
I found some. I've been burning the incense.
What's your
going to bed
go-to
early
scent?
There's a scent called, I'm gonna butcher it, Côte d'Azur. It's by Aribe. You know that company Aribe or Aribe? O-R-I-B-E?
No, I buy
They've got one called
my
Côte
incense
d'Azur.
from street vendors, and there's not a brand
Palo
name
Santo?
necessarily. Yes, exactly.
Nag Champa?
I
like that too.
Yeah, that reminds
like
me of
those too.
college.
Yeah,
Nag Champa
definitely.
smells like an NYU dorm room. You know?
There's a store on Elizabeth Street called Love Adorn that's got a great selection. I highly recommend.
All right,
it.
I'll go check it
all
out.
all sorts of incenses. Oh, I should say our buddy Steve Sario's coming to LA, and I'm going to have dinner with him on Saturday.
Oh, nice.
So
we should get him back on the show.
We should get him back on the show. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk about the summer auctions.
Very cool. All right, well, we'll do that here next week. Please tune in again and email us if you've got anything that you want to talk about. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Bloomberg.